Who were you before you lost your wild self?
That's what we're helping you explore on the Tend Her Wild podcast.
Through questions and tools around how best to listen to your inner voice,
rewild ourselves, and live the most authentic life where we thrive instead of survive.
I'm Betsy.
And I'm Kate.
And we're so glad you've joined us for this episode. Hello, Tend Her Wild podcast listeners. Welcome to season 3.
Woo.
We are so excited to be back and thrilled to welcome our guest today. This is her second time. We love her so much. We said, come back. We need to know all you know right now. So let me introduce Cathy Pagano. She is for sure a change agent, an evolutionary activist and healer. And she helps people transform their lives and evolve their consciousness. She has absolutely done this for me. And similar to what we always talk about in this podcast, Cathy also believes that as we each deepen our own self-awareness, we can bring a much needed evolutionary change to our world. And holy cow, do we need that more than ever. Cathy is a coach. She's trained in dream interpretation from the Jung Institute in Zurich. And she has been doing professional astrology since the 90s. So long before astrology had reached its interest in its zenith, Cathy already knew a ton about it. She's also the author of Wisdom's Daughters, How Women Can Change the World. And so she is a perfect fit for this podcast. And she has been a profound influence on my life through my work with her. So we're thrilled to have you back today, Cathy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back. Maybe we can be like Saturday Night Live and I could come and be like the host when they...
Yes. Yeah. I think we have to have you back every year because you tell us what's going on in the ethers.
Yes. And that's what we're looking forward to today, Cathy.
Yeah.
And, you know, when Betsy and I talked about our theme for this season, we settled on hope. And so you are our first episode of the season, and we are really looking forward to hearing from you about what we can expect from this year and how hope might be woven into any of what you see astrologically in the months and year to come. Both as individuals, I think we have an interest in this, and then also your perspective really on the collective and what is on the horizon. What can we expect?
Right.
So thrilled to have you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me back. I appreciate it. I love to share what I know. If you know astrology, I have a Gemini ascendant, so I like to pass out information and teach. Okay, so I'll start. The biggest thing you have to understand is, if people don't know astrology, is that our whole solar system is an energetic system. And just like the moon affects the tides and it affects the waters in our bodies, especially women, all of the planets have an effect on us. So we can say they're archetypal energies. We can say, we can talk about them in all different ways, but I want to talk about them as if they're archetypal energies that are influencing us. Okay?
Great.
The biggest cycle that we're in right now is the cycle of Pluto and also Uranus. Back in the 60s, in 1964, 65, they came together for the first time in a while, in a couple hundred years. And they're the energy of revolution, Uranus, and evolution, Pluto, death and rebirth, but evolution. And every time back to Spartacus that they came together, there was always cultural revolution and transformation. Now, since the and it's interesting that the Bob Dylan movie is out right now because we're about to go into the easiest flow of these two energies that we've had since the 60s.
Wow.
Okay? So in the 60s, it just erupted with the hippie movement and the sexual revolution and the beautiful artistic revolution and the social consciousness. And then in 2012 to 2015, they were in a square in a 90-degree challenging aspect. And you saw all of the same issues come up: the feminist movement, the Me Too movement, the social justice movement, the Black Lives Matter movement. All of those things came up. And a square is a challenge. Okay. They rub up against each other. And then we sort of fell back into patriarchy. And now it's about to be in what's called a trine. It's just an easy flow. Uranus, the planet of unexpected surprises and revolution and awakening, is going to leave Taurus and go into Gemini this summer. And then Pluto, back last year, went into Aquarius. So it's going to be two air signs, and they're going to work together for the first time in an easy flow since the 60s. Okay. So Pluto is the god of, or the energy of, how we change our collective ideas. Okay. It's a big, giant energy. And since in 2008 to 2024, it was in the sign of Capricorn, the sign of our government, our institutions, our financial things. And in 2008, when I went into Capricorn, we had the financial crisis, which was not taken care of well. Okay, they could have done it better. It brings up what's dead. It says, let's see what's dead. So for the last 16 years, we've seen how bad our government, our financial systems, everything has been.
Yes, we have.
Okay, and then Pluto, for the first time since after the American Revolution, or during the Revolution, it went into Aquarius. It went in for the first time just for a couple of months in 2003, and then it went in from January 20th to September 1st in 24, but it went back into Capricorn for the election in the United States. Okay, and I'll talk about that later. And then it's going to stay in November 19th, okay, after the election of 2024, it's going to go, it stays in Aquarius till 2044, another 20 years.
Wow.
Right? So what is it doing? It's saying it's going to look at our collective consciousness. Aquarius is our collective beliefs, what we believe for a long, long time, right?
And that's changing in a major way for all of us.
In the next 20 years, I think it will be totally different. We will no longer think that we're in a Descartes, how am I saying, Cartesian idea of science. We're going to be in a quantum field of science. And more people are going to understand that. Okay.
And so this change, this collective change, is actually positive.
It's positive. But of course, it doesn't happen right away. Because it's interesting, on the inauguration, on the day of the inauguration, which was when the sun went into Aquarius, it was with Pluto. And what did we see? We saw President Trump with all of the technological guys right behind him. That's where the power is right now. Aquarius is very much about technology. But it's also about our collective consciousness. And so why aren't we paying attention to our own inner technology? Like, why aren't we paying attention to telepathy? Like they talk about in the telepathy tape podcast, how the autistic kids who are nonverbal are using telepathy. It's something that we have the ability to do. Of course, the CIA and all of those places, they have been studying this for a long, long time. So we know that human beings have that ability. So hopefully with Pluto and Aquarius, we will open our brain up to some of our other abilities. So that's the positive. And that's one of the things I hope that we'll work on. Okay. A quick little trip. The last time it was in Aquarius was from 1778 to 1798. So during the end of the American Revolution and when we wrote the Constitution. It was also during the French Revolution when they brought down all of the wealthy people.
Wow.
Okay. We don't want to go into that terror because they were very bad then, but it was all about equal, dismantling social hierarchies, you could say. That was what happened last time.
It's
Okay.
kind of happening right now, isn't
Yes.
it? On some
Yeah.
level. Like, could this mean that our whole Constitution is going to get reworked?
Well, I hope in a good way. I know
Okay.
that some of the red states want to do it, but they're very much that Project 2025. They don't trust women. They think that since women got the vote and people of color got the vote, that everything's going downhill. So they're trying to get it back to the patriarchy, but patriarchy is dying. Okay, we have to trust that patriarchy is on its last legs. That's why it comes back extra strong. It's called the sunset effect. Do you know?
Mm.
I
Yeah.
always say, you finally meditate for 20 minutes after you've tried for a month, and the next day you forget to meditate. That's the sunset effect.
Oh.
Do you
Can I
know?
ask? Can I ask? It. I have such a sense right now of this strong masculine energy that's like gripping us. And when you talk about the air signs coming together and the flow of that, that feels very feminine. So what can we expect from the masculine and feminine right now that feels counter kind of to how the
Well, first
moment
of
is?
all, air signs are considered masculine.
Okay.
We've just had everything in feminine signs, okay? But masculine is action oriented. Okay. So I will say I did have a dream that I was standing in a doorway and it felt like the White House. It felt like a big house. It certainly wasn't my house. Could have been the White House, but I was and all these men with cats in their arms walked in.
Hmm.
So I think that the toxic masculine is like the last legs of it is happening. And I think that we're going to see many more men who are cat ladies, who are in touch with their feminine instincts and who will support women. Unfortunately, North America, I should say the United States, a friend of mine said all of this continent and South America are America. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
In the United States, we were founded by Puritans who did not like the feminine, who kind of hated women, okay, who kept us imprisoned, like the Handmaid's Tale. And that has really shaped our consciousness here in America.
Wow.
American men
Mhm.
have a negative mother complex. Okay, they don't trust women. Whereas in other countries who have been rooted there for so many thousands of years, they honor the feminine in a much different way.
Is this why we can't elect a
Elect-
female
Yeah.
president?
Yeah,
Like, if you think about historically, if we're based on a patriarchal, like
yeah.
that's our birthplace for this country, this is helps explain why
We don't trust the feminine
we
to
can't
lead.
get a woman
We
into
don't
that
trust.
higher
There's a
office.
fear of the feminine in men,
Fear.
in I guess the power places. Whereas you look at South America, they were founded by Spaniards and Portuguese, and they loved their mothers. They loved women. They're much more earthy. They're much more in touch with the goddess,
Yep.
right? But we're those fathers, daughters. We're all in our head. We're trying to be so conscious and good, and so our job is to get back in touch with our instincts, get back in touch with our bodies, and not be so afraid of our wild woman, if you will. Right?
Yes.
Yes.
You're on the right podcast, Cathy.
Yeah. Well, I hope all of you have read Clarissa
Oh, yes.
Women Who Run with the Wolves. And if you've ever heard her talk, she's the most amazing storyteller. She's a cantadora. And just listen to her. Anyway, so back to where we were. So this is kind of the beginning of the Aquarian age, because the other thing that happened was in 2020, the two social planets, Saturn, which is the planet of restriction, and Jupiter, the planet of expansion, they come together every 20 years. And for the last 200 years, they've been in Earth signs. So every 20 years, they come and start a new cycle. It's called a conjunction, and then they circle around. Before that, and for the first time except for once in the maybe in the 70s, which always happens, they came together in air signs in Aquarius, and that hasn't happened for 800 years.
Wow.
Okay, so they cycle through the elements. Okay, because in astrology we have earth, air, fire, and water, right? So they've been in earth and now they're back in air and they're in Aquarius. And so once again, this Aquarian signature, if you will, right?
Mhm.
So Pluto is a transformer. Everything, you know that chant, everything she touches, she changes, the goddess chant. Well, Pluto's like that, okay? Everything he touches changes. And Pluto isn't a bad guy. He's evolution, but he's the planet of wealth and power and secrets and mystery and shadow journeys, you know? And he's the god of the underworld. But what's under the earth? Jewels and metals
Resources.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
resources, right? He's the god that rules, you know, probably with Ereshkigal a little bit. Okay. So Pluto is something that if it's contacting any of your natal planets, you will change. Okay. But don't be afraid, because if you're afraid, then you just are holding on tight and you don't want to let go. Right?
Can I ask, Kathy, is
Sure.
this a time for us to let go, to release, to not try to hang on so hard?
To make
Yes, there's
changes.
two other things happening and that in the next month that really hit on that.
Okay.
Okay, so the first thing I would just say is if you want to work with Pluto and Aquarius, be heart centered. Even though it's an air sign, stay in your heart.
Mm,
Okay.
that's good advice.
Hmm.
You know, and you know, there's going to be waves of rebellion and idealism sweeping the collective. You can see it now, the 60s energy of everybody's protesting, right?
Hmm.
It's happening, right? But stay in touch with your body, your instincts, your inner wise one. Find your tribe. Give back to your communities. Okay. There's so much going on this year. I don't know if we'll ever get there do it in an hour, but we will. Practice common sense,
Okay.
you
Mm.
know,
So be
and
practical.
be practical. And you can look at your shadow, but I want to tell women are the biggest shadow all of us share is that we're supposed to be good girls. And we have to stop. That twists all of our actions. We can't be truthful if we are trying to be a good girl.
Mm.
So speak your truth, okay? Don't be afraid to have people not like you. Don't be afraid that you're going to step on someone's toes because you have to trust that you have a good heart. And
Mm,
Right.
at first, it's always hard to stand up for yourself. So it could be harsh the first few times, but after you practice a little, it goes into a flow and it's much easier.
So let me speak this back because this feels really important that we need to be living from our hearts. We need to keep our hearts open, but we need to be willing to bring in a fierceness
Yeah.
and a sense of boundary and saying no and sticking up for ourselves and not being in that good girl place of like, oh, I just need to please everyone and make people happy. So it's both open heart with like fierceness
Yeah.
and backbone,
Yes.
essentially.
Well
Okay.
said.
Okay.
Well said. Well,
Check. We're going to
Check.
put that on the goals for this year, Kathy.
Yeah.
okay. So if you know your astrology chart, look and see how it's affecting you. I always say that. Okay. And especially for my age, I'm a baby boomer. We're going to be one of the first generations to have a Pluto opposition. So it's going to be really interesting. An opposition makes us face things, makes us face ourselves. Okay. So it's going to be interesting to see what my generation does. Baby boomers were like from 1940 to 1958, something like that. Okay.
Do you feel like that generation, because that'd be our parents as
Yeah.
well, that lived through the last time that this Aquarian age, that there will be like, is there muscle memory there to like bring people back into that? Like, is that in you? I am so curious about
So,
that.
going out, demonstrating, I
Yeah.
keep seeing the young girl with the flower, putting the flower in the gun. Do you know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
grandmothers this time, right? And
Yeah.
going back to the Constitution, Ben Franklin went to the Iroquois Nation and said, wow, you have a good Constitution. They were the Native American tribes up in northern New England. And he took everything except the most important thing, the Council of Grandmothers. They were the ones who ruled everything. They would say, you're not a good chief. Go to your room. We're going to bring another chief in, or you can't go to war. And instead, they gave us the Supreme Court, which is
Mm.
very well.
Yeah.
So the Iroquois honored the crone
Yes.
energy.
The
That was
wise
at the
woman.
top, the wise woman, and that's what totally got cut out on the butcher block when it
Yes.
came to our own constitution.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Definitely. It's that fear of the feminine. In the Middle Ages, the men would go, "Oh, that old lady, she's giving me the evil eye." It was basically an older woman going, "I see what you're up to."
Yeah. Seeing through all that.
Let's burn her at the stake,
Right.
right? That's
Right.
how it used to
Yeah.
be.
What needs to be. So that's an important thing. So cycles within cycles. So right now, another big cycle that's going on is Mars and Pluto. Mars, we say Pluto is the higher energy of Mars. Mars is our personal desire, and Pluto is our collective desire to grow, to act, to whatever. Since last fall, Mars has been in Cancer because it went retrograde. Usually it takes like 16 days, 2 weeks to go through a sign, but it's been in Cancer since November and or December, and it's not going to leave until April
Mm.
because it seems to be going backwards. That's what retrograde means. Not in reality, but in terms of the Earth, okay? Orbits.
That
So
tracks right now.
yeah, so Mars retrograde, Mars is our activism, our dynamism, our desire. And when it goes retrograde, it's like we have to really go in and say, well, what do I really desire? Right? And in Cancer, it says, what makes me secure? What is it? And what about my family? And what is home to me?
Mm.
Right? So during this Mars retrograde, sort of our work has been look at all the old family stories that you live in. It's time to dump them.
Mm.
And we're talking about release, right? It's time to release them. Those are the stories you learned with. But now you need to go forward and create a new story. You don't need to carry the raft that you got across the river on. Okay.
And that's until April. So, in terms of doing like this deep family, in many ways, purification of our lineage and just letting go of the old stories that don't serve us from what we learned,
Yeah.
that is the work we should be doing through April, essentially.
Yes. In the middle of April, it goes back into Leo around the 19th of April. And March is the end of March is like there's a lot going on. So, but a lot of it is on Monday, the 24th, it's going direct. Okay, so it's been retrograde. Right before the election in the United States, Mars retrograde. I mean, Mars was going direct. It was at 29 degrees Cancer, and Pluto was at 29 degrees Capricorn. And where do we find our security in the government? And Donald Trump was elected.
Mm.
Okay. So that was the first one. The second one was when Mars had moved a tiny bit into Leo and Pluto had moved a tiny bit into Aquarius, because those are opposite signs. And then the third opposition will be in April, around April 24th. So until then, we were working out these old family dynamics, right?
Okay.
One of the things I always say, I've said this to Betsy, we in America live like kings. We really do. Even as one of my sons said, Mom, as poor as you are, you're still in the 1% of the world. He lives
Yeah.
in Dubai and he sees what poor people are like, right?
Yeah.
And so we don't live in war. We're not in Gaza. We're not in the Ukraine. We're not in this tremendous, horrific sort of place. But so we have to work out our individual traumas, right?
Makes it more important.
Right. So we become conscious, and there's a bit of the whole world here in America trying to become conscious. So I like to look at us as we are here to become conscious. It's up to us. If we really want to lead the world, we have to say our leaders haven't been very good about what they've done in the world, okay? But we have to be good about it, right? We have to own our shadow. We have to live our best. We have to do what will help the community. This is our next phase as humanity, if we're going to make it through, humanity has to grow. We have to become responsible, right?
Right.
And that's our job. Get conscious.
Is that I've struggled lately with kind of my feelings around, so many people that think the only way forward is to kind of burn everything down. And that just may be the way it needs to happen. But how does consciousness fit into that? Because there's also so much pain and heartbreak. And of course, I always think, is there a better way, a more conscious way to do this that doesn't feel, or is that not possible? I don't know.
Make it possible. Okay, if the government, it's like saying, okay, the government is just hurting everybody right now. Okay.
Mhm.
So where can we pick up the slack? It might just be in our neighborhood. Okay. It's almost like back after Jesus Christ lived, okay? The early Christians were like yeast. They were like the yeast in the dough they would go into communities and they would help people and they were enlightened for who they were, okay? He preached love and that's what they tried to live. So instead of one day I was thinking of all the ways that I could kill all those evil people that are in charge. And then I went, wrong way to use the imagination. Okay. And I stopped. We can't sit there and think, I hope they all die painfully. I mean, we want to maybe, but we can't. We have to imagine better. We have to say, where can I bring love into the community? Where can I bring self-awareness into the community? What's my gift that I can bring into the community? Okay. Because we've depended too much on government. We've sort of been lazy. We sat back, we became consumers especially after 9/11 and especially during COVID. And we have to stop. You can't be a consumer if you want to be a citizen. I don't think.
Yeah.
Right? And so we're here to be stewards of the earth. So, we all plant our gardens. We also try regenerative gardening. We have extra food. We give it to the food bank. We do whatever we can to form communities that are conscious.
Yeah. It's like a call to action is what I'm hearing from you.
Right.
Like if we were living in Gaza, it's a survival. I have to get through this. But because we are all embodied here in the United States, there's this call to take your own stuff, work with your own stuff, evolve your own stuff, which then trickles out into our communities. And then that's how we're creating change is what I'm
Yes.
hearing you. Like we're being called to step up, essentially.
Being called to step up and live our values and be citizens. When it's time if we need to protest, that's good. If we need to call our representatives, that's good. But it's more about the personal, right? You don't argue with people who believe something different from you. You're open and you say, okay, I'll listen. What do you have to say? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I have a lot of people emailing me and saying, you're not hearing, you don't know what's really going on. And I said, you know what? I don't. I've always been radical and I've always,
I've always been a wild woman.
Yeah.
maybe I need to hear what the other side what the other side sees as reality, because maybe that is reality. And maybe I've been blind to what goes on behind the scenes. So we all have to be, this year is going to be such a game changer. We all have to just open up and see things in a totally different way.
Yeah.
Keep that heart open, people.
Heart open.
And
So
that does give me some hope
changes
too.
are going to come. A lot of changes in March. March is a very big thing. What's happening is 4 planets are going to go over what we call the Aries point, 0 degrees Aries. It's where the year starts. Okay, it's where the zodiac starts. And a lot of planets are also going to be at 29 degrees of an old sign. Okay, 29 degrees is like make it or break it. Either do this really well or you really don't even bother, right? And so the planets are Neptune, which has been in Pisces for the last 14 years, Saturn, which has been in Pisces for the last 2.5 years, Venus, and Mercury. They're all going to go over that point. Now, Venus and Mercury do that every year, but the interesting thing is they're both going retrograde in the beginning of Aries. They're going to go into Aries, and then they're going to back up and go back over the Aries point into Pisces and make a connection with Neptune and Saturn, and then they're going to go back over the Aries point back into Aries. So when anything gets hit that many times, it says new beginnings. This is really important. Stuff's going to happen. Everything's going to look new and different. Okay? So let's look at it. Well, first of all, Mercury. Mercury goes retrograde 3 times a year because it's so close to the sun. It doesn't get very far. So it's like, okay, stop your thinking, pull back, think again, right? That's Mercury. Rethink things. Venus goes retrograde once every almost 2 years. She's starting what's called a new Venus star point in Aries, and that's a new beginning because Venus makes a 5-pointed star in the sky every 8 years. It's 5-pointed star has always been the goddess's number, right? It has been her symbol, right?
Wow.
And astronomers, they knew, right? So Venus says, oh, I'm going to start something new, but maybe I better go back and touch back on Pisces. Now, Pisces, if Aquarius is our collective mindset, Pisces is our collective heart. I think it's what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious. It's where we dump everything we don't pay attention to. Old people, kids, the environment, all the things our culture doesn't want to pay attention to, right?
Yeah.
And so now Venus is going back and saying, oh, but people are suffering. So what am I going to do? Right? It's going to touch on Neptune, the planet of imagination and spirituality. And it's going to say, what do we need to do? Use your imagination. Imagination is our superpower.
Yeah.
Okay. It's how we create in the quantum field.
Today's episode is brought to you by Dr. Yoga Mama, which is all the many offerings I have blending psychological science with the ancient wisdom of yoga and mindfulness. Join me for a yoga class, a meditation weekend, an online course, Wisdom Wednesday, which is the first Wednesday of every month, or maybe even an international retreat like Greece in the fall of 2025. By providing spaces and experiences for people to look inward, it is my great honor to watch people become the change they wish to see in the world.
This podcast is being sponsored by Kate Moreland Coaching. As a transformational coach and an advocate for authenticity and well-being, I work to support individuals and organizations navigating challenging times. Whether you are an individual, a leader, or an organization, your creative power lies in your authenticity. Doing the work to understand your strengths and acknowledge the patterns and rocks that are in your way is the path to well-being. Whether it's your career or your relationship with yourself or others, transformational change begins within. To learn more, reach out to me at katemorelandcoaching.com.
So are more people going to be tapping into imagination, or you're just saying we all need to be using our imagination?
We all need to use it, and more people will be, because what happened is the media has taken over our imagination. We watch bad movies and really bad TV shows, right? And sometimes when you go in to meditate, the first thing you see is an image that you saw on TV, right? Or in the movies. Why do you think we're such a violent culture? They have been putting out violent movies for 40 years.
Yep.
Images go right into us, right? So we have to clean out our imagination, which is what's also going on. And then we have to use it.
And is that creativity also, I mean, I see that as the feminine too, that we have to actually use the feminine energy of creativity to create new ways forward, new ways to take care of people, new ways to approach problems.
Yes. The imagination is the foundation. The feminine is the foundation. The feminine connects our soul to spirit. That's why we're so cut off from it in our culture, and we're so 3D. I call it flat Earth. Okay. People talk about the Antichrist. Our culture is Antichrist. It means against spirit. Our culture, not that people don't, separate people, but as a whole, we just think that's all there is, what's here, right? So the imagination says, no, we're something different. So clean it out. And that's coming up with this. We're going to have a lunar eclipse, I think, around the 13th or 14th. And that's the time to sweep it all out. Get rid of all the old stories. Get rid of all the old images. If we could shut off our TVs and not do that and read a book, go into your own imagination, meditate. And when you meditate, it's not about clearing your mind so you can go to heaven. It's about pay attention to what the images are saying to you. That's why dream work is so important. The energy in you comes out in images. Okay. Symbolic language is the language of the feminine.
So what I'm hearing is that we have to be really conscious about the images we're taking in right now. So maybe going on a media diet, or maybe really not watching as much news, or getting off our social media can be important, because we are in imagination time, and we need to find our own imagination versus use the imagination of Hollywood.
Yes.
Okay.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Read a good book. Whenever I get into a place where I need inspiration, I get a really great fantasy book where the good people are fighting the bad people. Do you know what I mean? And I go, okay, I can do this. I can do this, right?
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, there are good and bad, I think from spirit's point of view, it's like, I would hate to have to incarnate and be a bad person. So I always feel bad for people who do bad things, right? But when I hear that Russian soldiers are just killing Ukrainian soldiers who have given up, then I think, you're really bad. Why are you doing that? I don't understand that kind of cruelty. Just like I couldn't watch the Game of Thrones because after two things, I thought, gratuitous cruelty. Why would I watch this?
Me
right?
too, Kathy. I got to number 2 and I couldn't do it either.
It's like, and he isn't even that good a fantasy writer. There's way better fantasy books out there. Check out Sarah Maas, M-A-A-S, or M-A-S-S. I think it's M-A-S-S. Great books, okay? And gives you hope that you can create a better world. Because we're talking about hope, right?
Yeah.
So all these planets going over the Aries point, everything's going to feel new this year. Now, Saturn has been in Pisces for the past 2 years or so. Saturn is 3D reality. It's concrete reality. To me, it's our root chakra. In Pisces, it's dissolving our old structures. Saturn's about structures. Back in the 60s, when those two planets of evolution and revolution were happening, Saturn was in Pisces across from them, because Virgo and Pisces are opposite each other. And I think it was Time magazine said, "Is God dead?" That was on the cover, right? And it's like, so, where's our spirituality? Saturn saying, let go of all those old beliefs. They're not doing you any good. So what's the new structure we're going to have as it emerges into Aries?
Yeah.
Are we going to feel better about ourselves as we help everybody?
Can you talk about that in kind of in the arena of religion and spirituality? Because I feel like we're kind of in the grips of this hanging on to religion and the merging of religion and the government, which is the antithetical to how we were founded, and how that plays into this. Because spirituality to me seems like, has always felt like a much larger plane, a more embracing type of movement. And what I hear you saying is that's the way forward.
To let go. See, if you study the early church, when you first would go in and say, "Oh, I'm interested in Christianity," they would have you do what we do in church now every Sunday or whenever. You would learn to be a good person. You would learn what the values were. But then they would say, okay, you're ready to meditate and meet God yourself. But something happened with all the alien invasions from, the Germanic tribes and Attila the Hun or whatever. And especially the Western church got cut off from that. You find the Eastern church has a very deep spiritual tradition. Okay. So in the West, only saints did the spiritual trip. Everybody else just go to church on Sunday and follow the rules.
Mm.
So we have to let go of those rules. Those rules have become chains around us, and they haven't taught us how to be connected to our own spirit. It's mostly get in touch with your own soul and listen, because the soul has a direct connection to spirit. If your soul wants you to do something, it's not about good or bad. It's like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do.
And
right?
and you need to trust that right now as an individual.
Right.
And watch those dreams, right, Cathy?
And watch those dreams. One of the books I reread recently, my son from Dubai was visiting and he was looking for a book to read, and I gave it to him and he went, I don't know, this is kind of an old-fashioned book. It was written in 1961. It's called Stranger in a Strange Land, and it's all about the new masculine. This baby, these people from Earth went to Mars and had a baby, and everybody died, and the Martians brought up the baby. And then they bring him back to Earth, and he brings their wisdom. And basically, he's like Jesus, okay? He goes, I finally get it. Everybody's God. You are God. The grass is God. The trees are God, okay? And he taught people how to use their minds so they could talk in their minds. Okay. But he also said that sex, that love, that making love is the most precious gift we have. And look at our country. We're the most addicted to porn. We're the most addicted to drugs. Okay. That's because we don't have spirituality, especially in our interrelationships.
Wow.
Right. Right. And so, but it takes focus. He taught them Martian. Okay. They had to learn Martian, which was a whole other language for them to understand. But we don't need to learn Martian, but we need to focus our intent. Right. So that's what the masculine is. The new masculine is the ability to focus. Right. On what, and also to have a desire to help. Right. Aries can be very selfish, all these planets going back and forth over it, but it can also say, learn how to be yourself. Aries is, who am I? Learn how to be who you are, but also know that you're here for the community. Right? Because Aries is a fire sign, but it's very connected to the air signs. So we have all this fire in Aries and then all the air signs. So it's saying, let's get going, everybody. We have a whole group. We have a whole world we have to save. Here's some information. Uranus and Gemini, right? Gemini is all about information. Figure out which information is important and don't bother with the rest.
Ooh. That feels like discernment, right?
Yeah.
Discernment, right? So that takes me to the lunar nodes and eclipses. For the last year and a half, we've had what's called the lunar nodes. It's where eclipses occur. There are 2 points in space where the planes of the Earth, the moon, and the sun come together, and that's where eclipses occur. But they move. Every 18 months, they change signs. So we just came out of Aries North Node, Libra South Node. The lesson for all of us was stop being codependent. Figure out who you are. Speak your truth. And now go back into relationship and have a more balanced, truthful relationship. Okay? Now they've moved into Pisces Virgo. Pisces says, pay attention to your heart. Go into other realms and you can be delusional, but try not to be, because swimming in the ocean of the collective unconscious is hard. That's why Carl Jung was so amazing. He mapped it out for us. And yet you can still get lost in it and become totally delusional. So you need to have, places where you're grounded. but it says be in the imagination, be in your heart, understand the collective heart. And then Virgo, the South Node says, oh, give up trying to be perfect. Give up trying to figure everything out. Listen to the imagination, Pisces, and then figure out what you need to do. So we're leaving behind, I have to be very rational and I have to understand everything and be perfect, to go with the flow. Trust what's coming into your heart. And then go back to the Virgo and say, this is what I need you to figure out. This is where my heart is. Figure it out. So we're switching things up, right? And in March, in the middle of the month, around the 13th, is what's called the South Node lunar eclipse. It's about letting go of the Virgo. It's in Virgo. Let go of what needs to be cleaned out. So you were talking about, can we release? Here's another release point, right?
March 13th.
March is a big month.
It is.
Well, the end of the month is really big because, first of all, there's a solar eclipse on the 29th of March in Aries. So that's the real beginning of the year with all these Aries planets, right? Going back and forth. March 15th to April 6th, Mercury goes retrograde. It goes from Aries to Pisces and then back again. Venus goes retrograde March 1st till April 13th. They touch a little bit in Aries, okay? Venus actually, I think, goes up to where the solar eclipse is going to be. She'll be there first, but go back. But whenever a planet touches an important point, it resonates, right? So what is Venus? Venus is how we incarnate our soul. It's not just love and money, but it's our connection to our soul, to embodying our soul and then taking it out. So she's going, here I am. I'm the wild woman. Oh, maybe I better go back and make sure I'm taking care of it. Okay, I got all the messages. Everybody's crying. I need to help them. Okay, I'm a warrioress. I'm back. Right?
Yeah.
So what's the practical advice to get through March? Right? If you're saying there's a lot happening, there's a lot of upheaval happening, there's a lot of energy going on. For the women listening to this, what are your pieces of advice for how we navigate the month of March?
Well, we're still in winter till the spring equinox, okay? So it's still a time to go in and imagine and dream, meditate. And it's not selfish. Take care of yourself. Get healthy.
Thank you for saying that. I think that's important.
Okay? We've been told, oh, that's so selfish. It's not. It's like, first put your mask on before you do anybody else's mask in an airplane, right? Take care of yourself, because then you're going to need energy, right? Because these planets, they're going to be moving in. It's not really worth giving you all the dates, but I wrote some of them down. But Saturn's going to go into Aries on May 24th. And then it's going to retrograde in July, the 13th, and then go back into Pisces September 2nd. Because next year's the real year. This year is, I'm preparing, but maybe not yet.
Oh, God.
So this year is our preparation year to take care of ourselves, to work on ourselves, to get clear on ourselves.
Imagine.
And then the real big change is coming next year. This is like a trial run this year?
Well, we're touching on it. We're touching on it, but then it's going to go back, right? So Saturn's going to go back into Pisces September 2nd. And then it's going to go into Aries for good in February 15th of 2026. Uranus is going to go leave Taurus and go into Gemini on July 8th. But it's going to go back into Taurus on November 9th. Okay?
A lot of shifting.
And Neptune's going to go into Aries on November 30th. So here's all the, right? No, you get Neptune going into Aries on the day of the solar eclipse, or right after the solar eclipse on the 29th. So there's all of these energies. It's still shifting. So Neptune will go into Aries, but it retrogrades July 4th and it goes back into Pisces in October. Okay. So it's really the next year that's really going to be the go.
Major year
We're
2026.
getting a taste of things.
Okay.
Think of it as this is the antipasta of I'm
This is
taking
the
you out.
appetizer of
The appetizer, okay? We're getting a little taste of all of these shifting energies. Jupiter takes a year to go through a sign. It's been in Gemini, okay? It's going into Cancer this summer. And so it's shifting. Now, that's the one planet that will be in a feminine sign of these big planets, right? Except when everybody goes back into Pisces, that's a feminine side, right? So it's a shifting between the masculine and the feminine and the coming and going. So I would say, imagine you're sitting in a tidal pool. Okay, I live right by the ocean. We have a river that comes down and goes into the ocean. And when the tides change, you can jump off and you can be swept around this bit of beach and go out to the ocean, or you can be swept around and go into the river, depending on where the tide is, right? So use earthly metaphors. What is the earth saying to you? This is a good time to ask Mother Earth, what's going on?
Reconnect with nature
Oh,
during this time.
go back to nature, because if we take off the TV, right? If we shut down the TV, that guy Lamar Kendrick or Kendrick Lamar, I didn't understand the words, and it was like killing me because I'm old and sometimes I don't hear things. But he basically said, "Shut the TV off."
Yeah.
Michael Franti, another great singer, shut off the TV, shut it off, right?
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about how art right now and creativity and the arts are starting to already feel really important during this
Right.
period.
Once again, hopefully, the Bob Dylan movie was all about how all of those great musicians were also social activists,
right.
right? And they sang to us about what it means to be a different type of human being. The Beatles, maybe weren't as social activists as Dylan was back then, but he said, this is what life is like. Eleanor Rigby, it's very lonely, and you're going to die alone if you're going to live like this. So they spoke to us, Joni Mitchell, all of the singers, they said, this is what life is like. Do you know that? Oh, and you'd go, yeah, that's what it is. That's what I'm feeling. Yeah. Right. So I know today the kids like Taylor Swift and stuff, maybe, but are they, where is the social commentary? And I think that's what might be coming back.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe coming out of that so intellectual, rotten, artistic scene in New York. I mean, it's like nihilistic. I don't know. It's like, let's get back. Let's talk about the earth. What's important? Bring a beating heart to art again.
So to wrap up, Cathy, because you get these big visions, I know that you have this deep capacity to kind of read astrology and then have this bigger bird's eye view. So at a time when so many people are feeling really overwhelmed by politics and the direction our country is going, what would you give us in terms of hope as you have read this big picture? If you've looked at the movement of these planets and you really understand it. I mean, half of what you say is like a foreign language to me. No, you do a great job of explaining it.
As concrete as you can, but I just astrologers talking and I got lost, so I understand how you feel.
Yeah, but what's your piece of hope for us and your big vision?
Piece of hope is that we'll all let go of an old story, that will unplug from the patriarchal story of you're unworthy, you're guilty, you're a sinner. That's the ground floor of patriarchy right now. Okay, the religious part, right?
Yeah.
That you're a consumer. That's the other side of it, the capitalistic part, right? That you're a cog in the wheel and you're not important. Those are all the old stories. Unplug from that. Be think I am God, like that guy in the book, Stranger in a Strange Land. Thou art God. Okay. Now that doesn't mean that you're delusional and you're going to go out and strike people dead with your lightning. But what it is you go, oh, I really am spirit. That was the whole point of Christianity. The body might die, but the spirit lives. Mary Magdalene had it and they got rid of it, right? Instead of the cross, we should have had the resurrection. But now we're at the point where we need to finish up the Piscean age so we can go into the Aquarian age. And we have to realize we are spirit.
Yeah.
And we can talk to the spirits in the trees, and we can talk to the spirits in each other, right? We can have the psychic phone line. We don't need to use our phones. We can say, I can say, Betsy, at 10 o'clock, I'm sending you a message. What did I say? And we can practice and we'd be good at it. I really believe we will, right? So there's hope that we are about to emerge into what Gene Houston, the transpersonal psychologist, calls the possible human. This is the beginning. This is the beginning of us stepping up and becoming grown-ups. This is the beginning of us stepping into the real reason we incarnate here on Earth. Right? And my friend Carolyn Casey said, instead of calling it your trauma, call it your beautiful, dangerous assignment. We have to get over being I'm so scared and I'm so hurt. Yes, we've been hurt, but we're not being bombed in Gaza. We're not being bombed around. We're pretty safe, even though we're not, right? So if you're afraid of men, learn karate, learn how to defend yourself, right? If you live in a place where it's a little dangerous, don't go out with people and learn how to defend yourself. I think all of us should learn how to do martial arts so that we have a fit body and we don't have to be afraid. The biggest thing I think is stop being afraid.
Yeah.
Right? When you're worried, when you're afraid, you're using the imagination in the most negative way you can.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go.
Right?
And there's so many, if you keep watching the news, there's so many reasons to get scared. I can't tell you how many clients that's their number one thing right now is I'm so scared. I'm so scared. And it's not helping any of us. And so I love the idea of let's quit using our imagination to see the worst case scenario and instead begin to imagine really beautiful outcomes from all this change that's happening around us.
Yes. But be the possible human, right?
Yeah.
We had so many good books in the 70s and 80s. I'm going to have to start writing about them more. But Carlos Castaneda, we all used to get his books every Christmas, right? And Don Juan said, you people, you're always afraid of your death. Your death is always standing on your left. If you're afraid, turn to it and say, is this you? And it will say, no, probably not. Right? We have to stop being afraid of death. That's the biggest fear that Christianity has put into us. Because, of course, we're going to die and burn in fire. Who would want to die? Right? But if you realize that if you die, you're just going to walk into another room that's bigger. You get to go to another planet, the mermaid planet, I always say I'm going to. Right? Where, if you stop being so afraid, like the Native American warriors would say, it's a good day to die. If we can get over that primal fear, because I think that's what spirituality is too. We have to realize that's why I brought Jesus in, okay? We have to realize that he got crucified, but he came alive again. Right?
Right. That's the story of spirituality. Yes.
And so if we could stop being so afraid, then we would be brave.
Right. We would truly live.
We would truly live. We would be creative. Maybe what's going to happen is somebody just wrote me and say, you do know that that the United States has no money, that none of the countries have money. And I went, yeah, because we keep printing fake money. And now they have fake money in Bitcoin. It's not real. We're living in a quantum field of something, right? So can we stop being so worried and be creative? Can we have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which is be creative? To me, the pursuit of happiness is our creativity.
I love that.
Right?
Oh,
Yeah.
This has been.
We could go on and on and on and on. Tell people where they can find you, because I know you work with people one-on-one. You have dream salons. You have a book. Where can people find all you? You have 2 books. You have an ebook.
It's called Aphrodite, Your Inner Venus. It's the rest of women, the one about wise women.
Yeah.
But you can go to my website, which is Cathy Pagano, Cathy with a C, Pagan with an O. I have the oldest name in the world. We were the last people to become Christians. We worshiped the goddess for the longest time. Pagano means a person from the country, which is where all the ancient religions still flourished for a long, long time. And I guess that's the easiest place to find it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much for shedding light in your beautiful way that you do, and
It's inspiring.
Your wisdom. It really is, and it's given me hope today. So hopefully for our listeners too, right? There's hope. There's always hope.
We have to stand for a better world. We have the capacity to create a better world. And the fact that we haven't is because women haven't been in charge.
Amen.
Okay. I have 3 sons. I love guys, but women need to be in charge. Not patriarchal women who are going to stand up with the men, but women who are the wild woman, but also the woman of consciousness, the wise woman, right? And we don't have to wait till you're as old as me to be wise. Okay.
I love it.
Thank you.
Oh, I could listen to you all day, Cathy.
I love you, ladies.
Love you
Love
too.
you.
We'll have you back next year to
Yes.
tell us 2026 about the real year of change.
Yeah.
But until
Or
then,
else-
we're in training.
Or else maybe in the middle of this next year, in the middle of the year by summer or sometime, to see how everything's going.
I have a
That's
feeling
great.
we're going to need her before then.
We probably will.
Okay, have hope,
Thank you.
ladies.
Thank you.
Imagine a better world. That's the way we do it,
That's
right?
the way we do it.
Imagine a better world. We'll do.
John Lennon, imagine,
Okay.
right?
Beautiful.
Okay,
Thanks,
take care,
Cathy.
ladies.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us today. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review. Come back and rewild with us again next week.